Alrighty, hi folks, welcome back to How to CAD Almost Anything MIT Summer 2026 edition. Today we are in session 3. Because this video is asynchronous, I don't get to ask you if you have any questions, we'll save those for the in-person session. Now, session 3 is very special because it's all about reviewing stuff that we've learned on session 1 and sessions 2. So let's jump straight into Creo right now, where I'm going to explain a little bit more about what we'll be doing today. Alrighty, so now we're back in Creo and we're gonna start with the projects for today, session 3, which involve the harmonica, the violin, and the pipa. The main purpose of session 3 is really to go a little bit more in depth into modeling, perhaps review some of the things that we already covered on the previous session, sessions 1 and session 2, perhaps make things a little bit more complicated, but more importantly, review, right? So that we can really establish the foundations of what we've learned so that we can continue building from there. And that's why our very first project today is the harmonica, which you see here. And at simple glance, this doesn't look too complicated, and we'll go over it, how we're gonna model this in just a minute, but we'll just take our time and we'll use this as a warm-up, because then we'll jump into the violin, which is gonna be more interesting. The violin and the pipa are stringed instruments, which means that the techniques are definitely gonna follow what we've done on session 2 with the guitar and the ukulele, and actually the Maureen Hour. But now with this one, we're just gonna model it just by looking at it without using any, like bringing any pictures into the environment. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So let me minimize this. I'm gonna go here to new part, and we're gonna call this harmonica. Okay. We'll go here to first things first, prepare model properties. And we're gonna change this as usual to the units that we want. So I'm gonna bring these centimeters, set, okay, then close. You see that appears there, so we're good on that front. I'm gonna close this part. So now I just start doing the harmonica. So let's go here to sketch of this phase. I'm gonna start doing a sketch. So what are we gonna do exactly here? Well, this is not too complicated. In fact, it might not take us that much time, even though I always say that, and it ends up taking us a lot of time. But essentially, we'll draw a rectangle, and then we're gonna do a bunch of extrusions. So we got 10. It's nice that it's numbered like that. And then we're gonna create two surfaces below and upwards, and then we're gonna create these things. And as you can see, we'll take our creative end in here. It's not gonna look exactly like this, but it's gonna be approximate, right? And we will assume symmetry in the sense of, all right, you have those two screws that are going to there, and this is the back end. I do not know really how the interior looks like. We're just modeling, the overall appearance of this thing. But at least we know on the back side, this is completely full, and you have those openings. And so we can do some of those things. And then we're gonna write all of these numbers on that surface. Now, what I was looking at doing is if it's possible to project a sketch into a surface. That technically is possible, it might be a little bit too complicated, so I'm gonna skip it for today. I have to investigate it more. I know in other softwares, like SolidWorks, is a lot simpler to do it's called the wrap command, where you can project and then thicken or remove material following the surface that you're on right now. But in here, it's gonna be more complicated. Instead, we're gonna extrude, but at least we have the extrude command that is up to surface. So that might be handy here. So we can try some of those things. And we might be also be able to play around with some planes and whatnot, even though those are really topics that will come up in the following session, in session 4. So let's do this. So I'm gonna go here. As a reminder, we click in that button, that gives us the sketch view, which is here, the top view of our sketch. I'm just gonna move it. And I'll go here to our fender rectangle, center rectangle. And we're gonna make that 300. And that we can make it 75 here. Yeah, so, roughly the dimensions of the harmonica. I'm gonna say okay, and I'm gonna bring this up by 20. Yeah, I think that's roughly right, maybe 18. There we go. That way we land like the thickened parts in there. So you go that. So now let's start adding all of those rectangles. So this is similar in a way to when we did the xylophone, that we have like a nice regular pattern. Again, we're not learning yet linear patterns. That's gonna come later. But here we have to struggle and do it by ourselves. Now, how could you do that? Well, I'll go here to line, and I'll do a construction line. And the first thing I'm gonna draw is two lines that are gonna go from here to here. And these two, they're identical. So if you see, if I make that one 50, the other one will also move. So these are the same lines. Now I'm gonna draw a bunch of lines. So these 2 points represent, actually, let me just draw a quick rectangle in here so that you guys get the idea. I'm gonna draw a rectangle that looks like that and another one like that. And you'll see that it's kind of, whenever the constraint icon appears, the little circle, we know that it's the same size, because if I made that 15, the other one also becomes 15. So those become our two end triangles, which means that we need 8 rectangles, which means we need 8 more in the middle. So we need to draw, if there's 8 points, so let's do it. We have to draw a bunch of lines. So we have 1 line, 2 lines, 3. Oh, so let me just make sure that it's not the same length as that, right? So 1 line, 2 lines. So you see how it automatically detects that it's going to be the same length in here. So we go 3, 4, 5, and now we need to kind of make these a little bit small. So let's see how many points do we have. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. And let me just draw one last line that's gonna come like that. So we need to do, you see that these are all identical, but these ones. So we're gonna go here to the equal command, and I'm gonna make these two equal command. There we go. And then equal command. There we go. Excellent. And we should do one more, which is that one and that one. Oh, I see. Perfectly. So now we need to make this one and that one. Excellent, there we go. So now at least we can guarantee that all of these points will be equally spaced. So what we can draw is a bunch of rectangles now. That will come like that. And it's nice because it recognizes, I mean, I know this is like an automatic feature that it recognizes that I kind of want to make them all equal to each other. Oh, you see that one is not the size that we want, so I'm going to try again. Again, this really mastering and being patient with Creo takes a lot of experience, trial and error. This is obviously one method, but you can see that if I did 40, then all of the equal spacements are kind of dependent on how much I did that one originally. And I think this looks roughly correct. Maybe I'll make that 35. That way there's a little bit more spacing. And then these holes, we can make them 12. Okay, we can do, let's see if we made them 14. I think this is right. I mean, I like overall these dimensions. So I'll go here to OK. And what we can do is extrude inwards, but not that entirely. We'll just extrude by 30. I know this is an approximation of the harmonic. It doesn't need to look exactly like it. But now what we can do is go here to, well, first things first, how about we start by rounding some of these edges? So let's go here to round. And let's see what would be an appropriate amount, maybe 5. Here, there we go. And then in terms of here, that seems to be flush. That piece, the one that goes in the top, is gonna be rounded. So now what we'll do is a sketch. It's gonna go here in the top. And we're gonna draw a construction line that's gonna span the entirety of that. And then we'll draw a rectangle that's gonna be just slightly bigger. And then we could have also offsetted things, but I think this is gonna be simpler. And I'll go here to my friend D, I'll choose that line. I'll choose that line and the ball button, as always, of the mouse. I'm gonna make that 0.1. Like a minuscule difference, really. But that it's sufficient that it will appear to be like a separate piece. And now I want to click on OK, extrude, We're gonna bring that up by 1. Is that enough? Maybe actually 3. I think 3 should be fine. And we can do the exact same thing here. I'll go here to sketch, face, and now I can be like, all right, I want to project 1, 2, 3, and 4. That way I can know exactly, this sketch is going to be dependent on the one that we drew earlier. So we modify the sketch that we did earlier, this one will accordingly modify itself. And then I'll go to OK, and we'll give this a thickness of 3. So what we can start by doing first is by filleting those edges. So we'll round them using 5, very good. So on and so forth. And then we're gonna give it an additional thickness. By the way, I could have also created we could have leveraged the fact that this is symmetrical. So we could have drawn a plane that chops this in half through the middle. So go here to OK. And now let's see what happens if I go here to round and I choose that surface. Okay, let's see what if I did 3. That way it looks just like, yeah, there. Although in here it seems to be just on one of the edges and not on that one, but maybe for symmetry, I'll leave it like that. Maybe 2. That way there's just a little bit of thickness. Excellent. So we have the body in there. So now we have to work with this piece in here. This is not terribly difficult to do either. I mean, we're not gonna make like ship bending as you would see there. It's gonna be simpler than that. But we can start by doing the following thing. I'm gonna go here to sketch, over to this face. So let's draw the overall outline, which seems to be like a piece that goes like that, and then like that. And this actually seems to spread out just a tiny bit. So let's draw that. So we're gonna draw first a line that goes. Yeah, so it doesn't, so it starts like roughly there, then it goes like that, so that's symmetrical. Then it goes, and then it goes roughly, let me see, yes, before the first, it's gonna go like that. So I'm gonna move this here, and then I'm gonna go to these 2 points. Wait. Let me dimension that point and that line to be, let's say 10. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this end. 10. Good. And now I'm gonna maybe dimension this with respect to that line. Why not? Let's make that 8. And maybe we should specify that we want that distance to be 5. There's not, so we don't have a terribly large amount of space for the screw in here. So maybe I'll make that 3. A little bit like that. I think that's gonna be fine. And now we can draw a nice construction line that's gonna come like that. That way we can then mirror the same sketch over there. So we'll continue drawing. We'll do a line that goes all the way there, one that goes all the way there, but obviously this is too much. Oh, let me see. Oh, so we got that we can establish that. I mean, honestly, we can make that 5. I think that's gonna be fine. Okay, and then we can make that distance even perhaps 14. There we go. Because you see how there's like a slight extrusion that comes there. So we're gonna make the bottom side almost identical. It's not gonna be the exact same thing, but at least there. Good. I'm gonna leave this like that. So now what we can do is select all of these lines by hitting the Control key in the keyboard. just like that. And then we're gonna go here to where it says mirror along that line. Good. Fully shaded, it indicates that it's a fully connected polygon. We go here to okay. So now what we can do is actually bring this up by a tiny amount, which could be like 1, as a matter of fact, to represent the fact that this is like a little thin piece of metal. And we'll click on OK. So now that we've done that, I can go here to sketch on that face, and I can draw a regular rectangle that's gonna go all the way like this. And I can select this point. I'll go here to where it says coincident, select this point, select that point. I'm wondering if I can go here to that. Maybe. Huh. Let me see if I click on 254. What would that be? Okay, that seems all right. Not sure why the coincidence was not working there, but at least that seems like an appropriate distance. So let's go here to okay. And now let's bring this up by, well, 20 might be too much. So let's go for 15. Now we're click on okay. So now what we have to do is give it its nice characteristic shape. So we're gonna, obviously we're gonna fillet the sides, but what I'm thinking is that even on the back side, there seems to be like a little curve. So what we can do is the following thing, where we go here to sketch over to this face. And I might even draw a spline. That's gonna go. Actually, maybe the spline might not be the best thing here, but we'll play around. It's because I would need a lot more points than the ones that I'm drawing it here. I'm just playing around to see, to capture more or less the shape of what we want to draw here. Obviously, this is gonna be have to replicate below, but I think we can. There's ways to do this. I'm not concerned. I think this is mostly fine. So suppose that was the shape, right? That you want to have in here because it kind of goes outwards, as you can see there. So then you'll complete the shape by drawing a polygon that goes just like that. And now you'll click on OK. So what we can do is remove material on the opposite direction, and let's say through all. And you're like, OK. So now what we can actually do is go here to round and select those two edges that we have here. And we can actually do something interesting with them. The thing is that because that's a spline, as you can see here, the results might be kind of interesting. So let's play around to see how much of a thickness does this want. And let's see, let me just edit this. I want to see how much I could potentially push this thing. You see, like 10, it already doesn't work. 8 doesn't work, but 6 does. And you know what? I might leave it in 6. I think it's a decent result. Do the same thing there. I go to OK. So now we got our edges down. It's maybe a good time to round that with a 5. That way we have our piece here too. There we go. And as you can see also from here, that's rounded too. So we can go here to round. The thing that is kind of interesting about it is that I'm gonna make an interesting thing with this in a minute. So you will leave, I think it's okay to leave it as 5. But now, to make this a little bit more realistic, I'm gonna go here to sketch, all the way here, and I'm gonna remove some material. So what I'll do is, let's see whether I can offset that curve by 1. There we go, just like that, and I click on OK. And we're gonna draw a line that's gonna go like that, and then we can delete segment. We're gonna delete that in there. So we're gonna remove that material, and let me do that over here too. So let's go here to offset curve by 1. It already remembers. We'll go like that, and then remove material. There we go. Okay. So now let's extrude. Remove opposite direction. It kind of already remembers, and we'll do okay. Now the key is that we will also need to remove material here. So what I'm gonna do now is, actually what maybe I should have done earlier is, let me see if I'm gonna go back in time. Maybe here, and let me see whether I can do a shell. I might do something. I might need to remove this material in order to do the shell. Or actually, I have a better idea. I'm gonna go here to, I'm gonna come back. I'll do here a sketch. I'm just gonna go, there we go. Just like that. So I'm gonna just draw a line that's gonna come like this. Just like that. And then we kind of would need to follow a little bit the path in here. So we can go over to our friend, the offset. And let's click on OK. Let's make that 1. Now I'm gonna delete segment there. There we go, perfectly. And I'm gonna offset that one and that one. Do that one. Perfect. Now let's offset this guy. Let's keep going. Okay. Let's make that -1. Excellent. And I'm gonna make a line that will go like that. Very good. And now, you know what? I'm gonna mirror those guys over to my side. So I'll click on why does it need? There we go. Or I might just draw them 1 second. -1. And now offset by 1. And now let's delete segment over there, and let's select that line. So I'm wondering, why isn't it not? Oh, because that is -1. Just delete that for a second. there we go. So I was just playing around here a little bit with the settings, only to realize that in the end, I think this was mostly fine. I just wanted to, cut the material the way this seems more appropriately like a stamp, like a single piece. I think this looks much better now. And honestly, the reality is I could have also gotten rid of this because it's there's a way where you could use a lofted cut that allows you to have more control over what you're cutting within your shaping here. But I'm gonna leave it for now because honestly, looking at the back picture, it seems a little bit thick. So this might actually be useful for us. In fact, what I will actually do is go here to sketch. I'm gonna do a sketching here, and in essence, I'm gonna project all of those lines just like that. And then I'm gonna create the line that's gonna be maybe parallel all the way like this. And we're gonna control maybe, like, this is roughly the thickness that you have in there. So maybe I'll say that I want that to be like 2 as an example, right? I think that that's gonna be fine. So I'm gonna delete that segment. And I'm gonna delete that segment. So that what allows us to do is that I'm gonna also remove material of this thing. I'm gonna say to reference, which is gonna be that face. So hopefully, oh, it's cutting like some material in there, as you can see. So maybe not. Maybe I cancel yes. Maybe I'll just leave that as is, to be honest. I think this is gonna be fine. So instead, I will get rid of this sketch. And I'm gonna go here to sketch, face, great. Let's project all of these guys here. Good. And now we're fine, and we're gonna extrude all the way up to here. I have to remember these numbers. I'll look them up later. So let me go here to reference. I'll say okay. So now, yes, we have obviously this shown like that. Now we need to also thicken the outside part of this. So we can go here to round. You can see that it's gonna be rounded like that, which I think honestly it will look fine. You can say no, I think this will leave it as is. And maybe that's too much, so we can do like 4. I kind of like it the way it would create the nice flush at the very back. Even though this is something now, thinking retrospectively, that I should have done maybe without that piece in there, just on the top side of this piece. But I think this is not, shouldn't be much of a problem. Let's say 3. Just cache it for a minute. I'm gonna sketch in here. Now, I wonder what would happen if I grab that and then I do a quick, let's say, okay, and now let's extend that by like 1. Along those lines, what would happen if I now rounded this instead? Oh, let's see, that might actually be what we're after. Okay, so I think this looks a little bit better now. I think more realistic for sure. In here, obviously, we would need to, if we wanted to be like super detailed, we would also make that look like if, thin as the sheet of metal. But I think this is decent in terms of what we were looking for overall. So now what we would need to do is the following thing. So we would need to come all the way down here and add these little bridges that you would see in there. So how do you do that? Well, what we can do is a sketch here on that face, which is flat, and we have essentially free spaces. So I'm gonna start by drawing a line that will go through the middle all the way to the bottom, like that. And we'll draw first a rectangle. This is gonna come like that. Good. And now we can draw another line that goes from here to here, another line that goes from here to here, and these are going to represent the other side rectangles. And then we'll obviously add the corresponding fillets in here. So let's draw another one that's going to go like that, and another one is going to go like that. So how much thickness do we want is really up to us, right? But we can say that we want this, undo. I want the distance between here and here to be maybe 5. Well, that might be 6. Let's do 6 for now. And let's do the distance between here and here to be. I do. I guess this is all. Okay. I think that's gonna be fine. Because 6 is gonna be symmetrical. That would make sense. So maybe let's then make that be 60. I think this will be fine. Because now, with these rectangles in place, really the ones that we actually wanted is that I'm going to select all of these lines. And I'll make them construction because I should have made them reference rectangles, to be honest. I'm going to leave them as. Wait. There we go. Just like that. And make the construction excellent. Good. And now I'm gonna just draw 3 regular rectangles, which are the ones that we're gonna actually extrude. There we go. I'm gonna drop that one there. I think it's fine. Like they were just good. So we're drawing 4 in total. Excellent. It should work. And now we're gonna bring them back by 6, which is really the amount that we had originally extruded. So go to OK. And now you see that we have we have this space. Now to beautify this thing, the last step is to round those edges. And actually we can go for 6, but there's nothing that is stopping us right here. We go. Okay. And voila. So now we have this aspect. And then maybe the last thing is to round those edges by a tiny amount. So the way that we can do that is go here to round, click in here. That's a lot. So maybe let's go for 1. There we go. And we click on OK. And honestly, the harmonica doesn't look bad at all on the back side. So this is mostly pretty decent. In there, excellent. So now what we would need to do is bring this down. So this side is good. Now we need to do the same thing on the back side. Now, I believe that this this little extrusion that we had here at the top was something that was unique to just the top. It wouldn't be the same thing on the bottom side. So we might need to remake all of this work again, as opposed to just mirroring this stuff, right? Because we started on, that was extrusion number 5, to bring all of this. Oh, actually, there's one last thing that we will need to do, which is making that 5. That, there we go. Okay, perfect. Excellently. I have an idea to save us a little of time while we work on this, which could be maybe to mirror all of this stuff and to undo some things. Let me see whether that could be a good idea or not. What I think I'll end up doing is that I will actually repeat the entirety of the sketch on this phase and we'll take it from there. So I'm gonna speed it up from this point. Alrighty, so there we go. We got most of our harmonica done in here. Maybe there's a few tiny details that I'm gonna modify in a second, but let me start first by hiding some of the planes in here. There we go. What I think I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add some slight chamfers in here. That way it looks a little bit nice. Yeah, I think that's gonna, maybe I'll do it as 0.5. Just a minimal amount in here. And then we just have to add 2 more things. Well, one of them is colors. We're gonna start by doing that in a moment. But before we get into the colors, we need to add the 2 bolts from which these 2 pieces would be attaching to. So we are gonna draw that, but that's gonna be relatively simple to do, to be honest, because we just have to draw essentially 2 circles. We're gonna get first the harmonic edge openings in there, and now we can get here. So we'll go over to sketch, over to that face, and we'll draw a construction line. It's gonna go like that. Another one is gonna go just like that. And then as always, we draw 2 circles, same size. We can make that 5. And we'll make these go up by 3. And the same thing here. So we'll sketch that face. We're gonna just project. There we go. That way we don't have to draw them again. Okay. Extrude by 3. Good. So now we're going to go here to round. Let's make that. Maybe let's do it. Let's do 2. I think 2 would look nice, yes. I mean, obviously these are representative balls because I'm not drawing actually like the hex symbol in here. I don't want to go on to that level, but I think this is decent enough. Okay, so we got this part done, so let's color this. So we know that this middle piece, it's all wood. So let's start easy with that. So let's go over to view, appearances, and let's find a nice kind of wood that we'll use for this. Maybe rosewood. So let's click on intent surface. So let's go all over here. And actually the back, there we go. Good. So that is a nice piece of wood. Now let's make this brass. So let's go over to metals. Let's choose brass. I'm gonna go again to intent surface. Just like that. I need to make sure those can color that face. Very good. We'll click on okay. So now we go this part color, and then the last part is like aluminum, and we're gonna make the bolt a different color too. Which, by the way, we haven't done the numbers we're gonna get now. I forgot about that. So let's go here to aluminum. Let's go here to intent surface. All the way like that. Obviously, the top is more complex than the bottom, but the bottom had like a simpler. I mean, once we learn the gist of how to do this, it's a lot easier. So let's go all the way like that. This looks all right. Very good. Which is also, this is the top side. There we go. Which, to be honest, we could also fillet. Now that I'm noticing that little edge in there, that way it's a little bit smoother. So let's actually do that. By the way, I'm actually not a fan of the aluminum that I use because that is like brushed. Maybe I wanted the polished surface. Let me go over. I'm gonna try again. There we go. You see now, not all of the aluminum varieties that you'll use are the same color. It's good to know. Future reference. Let's color this again quickly. There we go. Okay, good. I think this is almost like what it was looking like earlier. And let me go here to model, round. We're gonna round those little edges by, let's say, 1. So, I can say yes, because actually now that I'm realizing it, I'm not sure I want to round like everything. I just want to round just the front. So let me see whether I go here to sketch, just like this. So I'm gonna project all of these lines like that, good. And then we're gonna draw a line that's gonna go all the way like that. And now we're gonna define that to be, undo, define this distance here to be 5, sure. And now we're gonna delete that segment. We're gonna delete that segment. And what that allows us to do is to extrude that briefly by, let's say, 1. Actually, I think even 0.1 should work because what now I want to do is go here to round, but I'll select, oh, I see. That's not gonna work. Cancel, yes. Let me try, and I'm gonna make that 1. But at least what that guarantees is that, there we go. It's as if it was bent towards the inside a little bit. Subtle detail, but I think it's good for that. So let's actually go here to view appearances. So let's change the color of that as well. Now let's go over to some other metal, like let's say steel. Let's make that steel plus why not? Excellent. And we can clearly tell that they're different. Good. So let's add the numbers. So let me first save this part. Okay. Okay. So for the numbers, this is what we're gonna do. We need to go over to one of our original planes. So let me show this. We need to create a new plane. So go here to model, plane, and we're gonna offset that by, let's say, 50. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Good. And now what we need to do is just sketch on this plane. Now, what's gonna be useful for us here is to go over to construction mode and project essentially all of these lines in here, which will give us an idea of, so I'm gonna project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know this is not the most efficient way, but given that it's not the same thickness, there's no quick way of doing this because I want to know where the numbers will be in space. Well, I could have also projected the original sketch with which we made this and made the construction, but I think we're almost there. So I'll just finish doing it via this method. So now at least I know where those points are. So what I need to do is I want to draw a bunch of rectangles that are going to go like that. Not that I need these rectangles, but really that surface in there, that's where I'm gonna draw, okay, where I'm gonna write all of my different words. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're gonna keep the height of these rectangles as variable. That's something that we'll be able to modify later. Good. So now let's go over to text. So I'm just gonna write here the number 1 and font, why not? Let's do the usual Arial rounded, center, place along curve. It's gonna be that curve in there. Let's click on OK. So if I were to make this 10, that's great. But now what I would like to know is the height of these guys. You see how, let me just make the height of that some other number. Now it's gonna interfere. So I'll delete that one. Let me just delete my number. Let me go back to here to text. Like that one. See, Arial bold, there's a long curve. Okay, that's gonna be fine. Center, okay. but I should probably add some dimensions. There we go. I should have done that earlier. So suppose that I'm happy with the numbers in here. You go to OK. So now this is the moment that I wasn't too sure, but we'll try it out, is that I could, for instance, say remove material, or actually add material. So this is where this is gonna be interesting. So let's say that I go to reference and I click here. So that's what's gonna happen. The question is, what if we afterwards we came and then we did a cut that's gonna remove all of that one. So it's essentially projecting the one is in here. So I can come like that as an example, and then I'll do a sketch, say on that face, where I'm gonna offset that curve by some amount, for instance, 0.5. It's good, it really doesn't matter, but I'm gonna come like this. And then I can go here to OK, extrude. We're gonna remove material and I'll say through all. And you'll see that my one is roughly projected in here. So I wouldn't say this approach is particularly nice, but at least it does the trick. If not, if this looks a little bit weird because of the way it's appearing on the surface in the air, what I can do is go here to our original sketch. Let's go over to edit, and let's make that height be 5. That way it doesn't really enter much, or like 7 as an example, right? So it looks a little bit more normal. Obviously, how much, if I go back to 26, I go here to edit, if I make that 0.1 as an example, the one will be like just subtly projected. And I think honestly, that height looks good. So what I'm gonna do now, I'll speed it up and then I'll come back to you, is that I'm gonna edit all of these numbers in here, which are 24. I'm gonna write them all in here and I'll come back once I'm done. So let me do that. Alrighty, so here we got it. This is our take on the harmonica. I think it looks pretty decent overall, a nice approximation based on these two pictures that we were using. You can see the back here. Obviously, you can be more detailed and try to model interior, but I think for what the exterior is worth, there's a fair representation of what it's supposed to look like. And I kind of like the numbers in here, especially with a different color. And they're all subtly somewhat projected into this curved surface. So at least this is a relatively simple technique on how you'd be able to achieve this. So now in just a minute, we're gonna continue with the violin. So now we're gonna continue by doing something a little bit more complex, which is the violin. Now will be fun because it incorporates elements from many of the things that we have already made 3D models of. You could think of this as almost like an ukulele in the sense that it also has 4 strings, but the geometry is a little bit more interesting because we're gonna do a similar procedure where we start by taking this picture. I just downloaded it, and we're gonna bring it into Creo, and we're gonna trace all of this area around, and we're gonna first extrude the box, the sound box in here. Then we're gonna add all of the different pieces. It's just that when you look at this, say from an angle, what you can start to already tell is that things are a little bit more interesting. They're not as regularly shaped, and you see that, for instance, there is a little bit of volume to the box in here, and we're gonna try to add each one of all of those features, as you'll see. So, but a similar procedure as always. Then we're gonna use a command that I introduced last time on session 2, which is called the 3D spline. That's what will allow us to make a nice string that goes through different curves. And if you look at the picture from the top, the string is not necessarily always straight. It originates there and then it takes like a little turn at the bridge, which is that piece in the middle, and then it goes all the way to here to the head of the violin. Otherwise, this is gonna be okay. Where we're probably gonna spend a lot of the time is, for instance, trying to get these shapes to look correct, right? The fact that this is like slightly bendy, then you have like the head. So we'll see how we model all of these things. I think it should be fun. And then one last thing I'll mention is that obviously there is the little swirl at the very end of the violin. Well, this is actually very tough to make a 3D model of because it would require using surfaces. We are not gonna do this. We're gonna do a simplified version of this swirl for now, but maybe something to explore in the future. I think we already have enough looking at all of this stuff. So I'm gonna bring this now into Creo. So I'm gonna, as always, let me just start a new part. We're gonna call this violin. I'll click on OK, and then as always, file, prepare, other properties. We're gonna change it here. Our unit system, call set, OK, close, you see it appears there, so that's great. So now we go over to view, model display, images, import, we select that face, and we go to this, go to Creo files, and I have that one right here. And really, as always, it really doesn't matter where you're gonna bring it. I mean, if you can get it to be roughly in the middle, that would be great. If not, I'm gonna leave it there, and that, that's gonna be handy for later. So I'll click on OK. So now I'm gonna go here to model, sketch, and I'll go sketch on this face, and now we're gonna start. So as always, I'm gonna speed it up now while I trace this picture, adding, a few details, creating several sketches for different parts of this, and then I'll come back to you as I start to build the violin. Alrighty, so now we have at least the base sketch of the violin drawn out in here. So what we can do is start to use it in order to create some volume. So we're gonna start with the usual procedure, which is by taking the box. So I'm gonna go here to model, now over to sketch, over to this face, and then I'm gonna project those two. I'll go here to OK, and I'll go here to finish, and we're gonna extrude that upwards by some amount that is huge. So maybe let's do a 25. Now, do bear in mind that I'm gonna try something out that I'm not sure whether it's gonna work, but it's worth the shot, which is, you see how the violin in practice, it's like a little inflated, if you can see from the way here. That, if you wanted to really properly achieve that, again, using techniques that we're gonna learn later, you could use loft, where you create like a shell, and then you're gonna try to connect like a wireframe per se, you're gonna connect through all of that. Here we're gonna use just a slightly different approach, which might get roughly a similar result. So we'll see whether it will work or not. So I'm gonna make actually this 30 or maybe more. Let's do 32. And the reason why I want to get it that large is because I'm gonna go here to sketch. Actually, what I need to do first is go here to plane. I'm gonna select that plane in there, and I'm gonna translate this by, let's say, 60. But I want it on so negative 100. Let's see. I want a plane that is essentially there, just backwards. All right, so not quite. Let's see, 300. Yeah, that will be okay. So here to sketch, over to this plane right here, and I'm gonna create like an angled cut. So we're gonna come over to, we'll need to project all of these lines. So as you can see, it results in something that looks like that, which I think this is gonna be fine for what we are trying to do. Look, I'm just trying out things. We'll see whether they will work or not. I hope they do. And now we're gonna make that free. So these are the specific cuts. Although I have a feeling that because they're sharing that point, it's not gonna be terribly happy. So maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make these two construction, construction, construction. We're gonna extend this by some amount. And now, yes. So we're gonna make maybe that parallel. There we go. And we're gonna do the same thing down here. Excellent. Good. So now I'm gonna try doing a removal of material, let's say through all. All right, it is actually getting there. Only now that I'm thinking about it, I'll go here to okay. I might, I actually didn't, I might intensify a little bit more the angle with which I'm doing this. So this, I might bring it to 5, and then all of these lines, I'm gonna make them construction, and instead, I'm gonna create an arch. It's gonna go like that. Now, we'll see what is the result of doing this stuff. It will look smoother. Okay. I mean, it's not perfect per se, because as you can see, like that's gonna be always higher in the back of the violin when it's supposed to be like inflated in the air. So maybe I might actually go back to what we had originally, and I'll make that 3. Does it look huge? But better than nothing. I think this is gonna certainly do the trick. Although now I'm thinking about it, I'm just wondering whether I think this would be fine. Because now what I want to do is like create like some edges that will go all around the shape. And I think that would have certainly not been difficult to do if we had been in the same angled plane. But now that we're all in like this plane per se, it might be a little bit more complicated. So maybe what I might do is I'm gonna yet one more time come here, and I'm gonna make that a construction, and I'm gonna bring back my straight lines. So we go 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. I know this won't look as nice, but we'll get rid of that momentarily because I can do a sketch now in this phase. Let's see. It is asking us to select a reference. Let me see. I think we should be in the right place. I'm gonna project all of these lines in here. And what I'm wondering is what happens if I offset them. Okay, let me do here rule-based. Okay, it recognizes that. Let's offset that by -2. Okay, good. Really, we can edit that. Let's do -3 just to give it a little more thickness to this thing. And now let's complete that loop. And you'll see it's not gonna be perfect. We'll need to fill it up later as we go, but at least this will get us somewhere. Because now, let me see. Is this a fully connected loop? I'll do, okay. Let me try to see what happens if I try to extrude that. Right, do. Oh, it is actually working. I'm glad. I was not sure this technique would work, but it's surprisingly working, which means that maybe we could, what I'll end up doing is that edge in there, I will probably come with a fillet and that will do the trick. But at least if I leave that as okay, and you know what, it is kind of the intended effect because what I will end up doing is that I might round some of this stuff. In fact, what I should have done instead, if I could go back in time to edit the definition, I'm gonna select that and I'll make that -2 or like a negative 1.5, let's say. I'm gonna make that construction. And now I'm gonna go over to my friend offset. Let's make that rule-based again. And we're gonna click on OK, but okay, but we're gonna make that -1.5. And then what we can do is go here to the line and complete the sketch, just like that. There we go. Now, if we wanted to make this even more properly, what we need to do is also, once we mirror potentially this feature, we just have to make sure that all of these gaps are filled. So let's, for now, let's click on OK. So you see how that is partially diagonally, but I think that's gonna be fine. I'll come back later, but the idea is that now I can come here and I'm gonna nicely fill it, that area. So let me just play around with this. What is that edge? Play around with that later. I'm wondering whether I'm gonna make these two construction lines. There we are, and I'm gonna try to make this just like that. I know it's not perfect, but then I can delete that segment. Very good. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing here at the front. So I'll make this construction, and then I'll come a straight line that's gonna go like that. And that will make it easier to later join these pieces, even though because this is angled, it's gonna leave like a little gap in between. There we go, just like that. And now I'm gonna delete these two segments. I click on OK. Great. So now that we have this, then let's actually start to leverage symmetry in here. So this is maybe a good point where we need to figure out how we can create a plane that's gonna go right into the middle of here. So let me see whether I can do a plane that will be referenced with that point and that point in here. Excellent. So I click on OK. So now if I go back to that original feature, I can go over to mirror. Where are you? And we're gonna mirror you around here. And I click on OK. So now, as I was anticipating, you get that little shape, but honestly, that is not the end of the world because we're gonna fill it up. So let's do that, and then we're gonna mirror this to the bottom side of the violin, and that will complete most of what we're gonna work on for now. So what I can do is a little triangle that's gonna come over like that. And let's see whether I can go here. Oh, but it's not gonna want to project, I see. Um, that's really not gonna matter much because we're gonna come here with that, and also at the very back we have that piece. So I might, that I'll leave it as is. While here, I think I'm gonna come and I'm gonna create like a nice flat surface. So what I think I may as well do is do a sketch on that face that's gonna come like that. And let's see whether I can join. There we go. We're gonna make this construction geometry. See. I'm gonna try instead to create a plane that will be just in those two lines. Um, Actually, a plane, we're gonna make it differently. Answer yes. A plane that will be parallel to that one and up to that point. I'll click on OK, and I will do a sketch. There we go. Now what I'll do is project construction lines these two. Excellent. And now I can draw a little shape that's gonna go in there and a rectangle that will go roughly like that. And that's gonna kind of replicate the piece that I'm gonna draw in there, and that's gonna come down. Maybe we'll say, actually we're gonna make that a little bit bigger than those two. I'll make that 4. We'll make that 15. And we're gonna go here to OK. And we're gonna bring that down by 4. Or let's see, actually, 2. Okay. I'm not gonna worry about that piece for now, but at least that's the way that we're gonna deal with that for now. And honestly, the problem is that we have to, this is only on top because really on the bottom it's fully connected. But we'll figure that part later. But at least we have all of this stuff. So let's maybe, now that we got this surface in here, let's also create a plane that chops that in half because we will actually need it to do something like that. So let me see whether I can go here to plane. I'm gonna select that face, and indeed it creates us one that goes through the middle. So now we can go over to 3 and 4. Well, 3 and that mirror, and then we're gonna go here to mirror, and we're gonna select this one that we just created. We'll go to okay, good. So the part that we would need to figure out now is how to connect all of those guys in there, which I think we should be able to do if we go here to, again, to plane. I'm gonna select a plane that goes here, and then one that goes there, just like that. Good, and now we do a sketch right in this guy. Pick our sketch, and now I'm gonna do a projection again of these 2 lines. Excellent. And what we can try to do is a rectangle that, let's see if it's gonna work. And I'm gonna bring this rectangle down by 1.5. Okay. Again, not a perfect fix, but at least it does the trick. And that's what matters. And here you can, it's minimal, but in there. Well, at least you have it. It looks mostly all right. So now what we can do is start to play around with this and make some rounds. So I can check in here, that's obviously too much, but if I were to do 1 millimeter as an example, that would work. In fact, I want to try 1.25. Now what I'm noticing from here is that maybe I should have made the depth, like I should have made this a little bit deeper into the violin. So I'm gonna, cancel yes. When we come into, I'm wondering. Alright, so now we're just fixing that feature by reapplying the mirror again. But well, we have now the box in there, and now I'll come back to this piece because we're gonna edit that and actually bring it down by, are we gonna do correct? Oh, I see, because we did change the direction of that to be, what happens with 2? This is 3.2. Oh, I see. So this has to be a little bit more, 3.5. Excellent. We're gonna leave it like that, good. And then this piece in here, we'll have to edit that. Again, this is something that we could fill up using a loft instead. But I'm gonna edit that and let's bring you down to like that. Good. Okay, let's see what this is gonna do for us. And now that I'm thinking about it, I wanna look at the violin, the bottom side. Okay, that's gonna all be occupied by that, so I'm not worried about the front yet. But let's see. If I came here, maybe the first thing that could be useful to do is a nice fillet in some of these sharp edges that we have here, even though, actually, before I do that, I'm gonna cancel yes. Let me see whether, yeah, that's what I thought. Actually, it's able to do it. So let's try. Good, that is exactly up to the area that we want to do that. Okay, that continues, that continues. Great. And what about the outside? Oh, very nice. Here. I know it's not ideal to make all of these things in a slanted manner, but well, at least this is why the violin is a little bit more challenging than the other instruments that we've done already. Okay, actually, it's a nice thick border that's going all the way across. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. So now the same stuff, we're gonna replicate it on each one of our bottom pieces. And now what's interesting is that I think, yes, I should be able to select that edge as it's showing right there. Very good. That's the fun part of doing it here at the very back, is that I might need to select all of these edges, which may or may not work. Oh, and maybe I see. When I click OK, even though it's possible that these ones in the bottom are not gonna generate, because you know what, maybe I'm gonna get rid of this piece. So I'm gonna delete you for now. Oh, I see. So I'm gonna try again doing the edges in here. Oh, so now it is working, I see. So we can fill it up later. I'm not worried about that piece. But we'll get to it. Perfect. I think this looks decent overall in here. If I could go back in time, there's something I would do, which is really, I just realized that I'm actually I'm gonna delete this piece in here. And to be honest, I might end up leaving that as well in the bottom piece. Because what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna do a sketch on, actually I'm gonna do a sketch here at the very middle of our piece. That's gonna be just a massive rectangle, just like that. And then I'm gonna click on OK. I'm gonna extrude downwards like that, but I'm gonna remove material. And you might be wondering, like, why on earth am I doing something like this? Well, it's because I want to create a shell. In fact, I should have done, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I'm gonna see whether that's in there. I'm gonna try to bring this here. Good. I'm gonna come back in time to this point where I'm in here. Great. So now if I go to my friend shell over here, how much thickness? Well, maybe two, maybe one. What I think it's realizing is that it's pretty, like it's gonna suffer a little bit in here. So let's see, 0.5. I don't think it's gonna like this. Cancel, yes. So I think I'm gonna go for an even simpler approach, which is to do a sketch here on this face. And now we're gonna just go here to offset these guys, but I'm gonna make it rule-based complete loop. So let's see. I suppose I did partial loop. Let me go here to cancel. Let's do it again. Let's say 3. And I think honestly that's fine. Then we're gonna regenerate everything that we have from before. Okay, so that seems like a straight line. So now I can select this thing, go here to mirror around here, and click on good. So the question is, oh, because I haven't mirrored the other part, which is, let me just select all of this stuff. Sure, let's do mirror around here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, right there we go. Let's do mirror. There we go. Perfect. So now we have this shape. I'll go here to OK. And I'm going to kind of cheat by doing a remove material. That's going to be like 10. Which is fine. I mean, like, it will hopefully do the trick. I'll go here to OK. So now I can come down. I had all of my other properties. It doesn't really make a difference. I thought it was going to work if I did the shell at the point, but now I'm just going to kind of, I might need to get rid of many of these planes, to be honest. It's too many of them. But what I can do is do a mirror of bodies. So let me go here, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, mirror, and select the plane. Well, I'm gonna select this surface here. So now it kind of creates another shape in there. But now the question is, why did the other ones disappear? Is my question. Because maybe I might need that to. We need to find whichever plane was the one in the middle, which could have been that one. No. Was it that one? I think so. So let's try again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do mirror plane. This guy. But why are they all disappearing? Alrighty, so after playing around sufficiently with this, I think I figured out some parts. now it's hollow in the inside. It just required, just being more careful about the order of operations in here. In the end, I decided to just start cutting straight from the beginning, only half of this, and then mirroring stuff. Because the reality is that if you mirror a cut that is pointing upwards or something that comes from the side, it's gonna remake itself on the next step. But at least now we got the box. It looks decentish. I think this is fine. I'll work on that later, but at least what we can start by continuing right now is by adding the neck, and that's gonna be fun as well, because if you look at some pictures in here, what you can see is that it kind of comes up and then it goes all the way down in the air. So I think there's ways to model that we can try, and the same thing. This is similar to the Marine curve in a way. So what we can do is go here to sketch all the way there and go to OK. And one nice thing is that that goes up, so that's gonna solve our problem on that front, and the same thing on the bottom part. So we should be fine on that area in here. So what I'll do is I need to project first and foremost this line into here, and then, to be honest, that line too, that's gonna represent our bottom side of what we'll be working on, and maybe I'm gonna just draw something that looks like that. That way I have a better idea of how far deep I should be going, and if the math is all correct, that should be 1.25. There we go. Not that it matters much now, but, and then going all the way to the top, we can give it a little bit of thickness, maybe up to there. So now we look at the picture, so it goes up and then down. So this is where maybe having this, I'm gonna project that line as a reference. We're gonna make it construction, there we go. So we can make that go up by, actually 6. Well, actually not so much, because then there's gonna be another piece that will be attached to there. But let's bring it back to 5. And in terms of the angle, we can play around with that in a minute, but it seems that it will be below what we started with. So if I were to draw something that looks like that, then will be construction, this will be construction, then we can draw a regular line that will go roughly up to there. And we can define that to be, there we go, let's say 3. And then we can obviously play around with some of these parts. So we got this. So now what we can do is bring this up to here. And now we have to just play around with how we're gonna create the arch that's gonna come in there. So that can easily be achieved using a classic spline, as we've always done. Or we could just draw a line that comes in like that. That comes there even closer, and then we just draw an arch. It's gonna be perpendicular to both of them. I can make that like, oh, there we go. That's the, what I just need to make is that line at that tangent. There we go. And that's gonna fix some of our problems. That obviously looks extremely thick, so we need to work on that. And the reason for that is because I just realized that that is coming at an angle, which we are not doing yet in here. So I should maybe say something along the lines of, suppose I want that to be, okay, leave it like that. Because I want the distance between these two to be 5. There we go. Maybe 6. We'll come back there. Now, there we go. So we can connect these 2 points, make them. Excellent. We'll just have to bring things to their right positions. Let's see, coincident, 1 and 2. There we go, just like that. And now tangent, 1 and 2. So what's the 365? Which one? So suppose I got rid of that 3. I think it's gonna be fine. Six. And say I make that 8. What I'm wondering is why can't I make this arch? Well, let's try it one more time. That, and now let me see whether I can make this and that tangent. There we go. Now that's what I wanted. As you go back here, yeah, I think it should be good. So let's make that 7. Let's make that 5. 5, there we go. And let's start doing some extrusions. So we got obviously that sketch in there, although we would need to connect them, or at least I'm gonna try. And just try one thing. Here, let's make these 2 perpendicular. I'm gonna make that a construction. There we go. Okay, so now I kind of need that to be right in the middle. So let's see whether we had, yes, there we go. So I'll do a sketch on that plane. And what we would need to do is a projection of one curvature feature, which is the sketch. Great. So what we can now do is try to extrude all the way up to these points. So go here to OK, and then extrusion. And then we can go here to, well, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to come from the top and I'm going to do a cut. So we'll go here to my friend symmetric. Let's say do 30. Now the question is, why isn't this working? Well, we'll figure it out. So towards one side, it's fine, which means that most likely what I'll have to do is that let's see, let me go to like 20. It's too little. Let's give this 12. So why wouldn't symmetric work? Let's do, okay. Now we'll probably have to deal with that in a minute. I'll come back to that. But now let's do another sketch on the same cancel. Yes, the sketch on this face, which is where we're in the middle. And now let's project again all curves on feature. Let's go to OK. Let's do the same thing. OK, and now extrude by 12. Now we got our neck being drawn. And we're gonna come here and we're gonna obviously make that look prettier and whatnot. That shouldn't be a problem. But now let's start by going here to sketch, over to the top, and let's project that line and that line. That will give us an indication good of how we're supposed to make this cut. So I will come here, make a big shape, doesn't really matter how you make it. There we go. But we could make this and that parallel. Okay, extrude, remove material. There we go. Also now it's kind of cutting into that, which we do not want. So we need to figure out whether there's a way to make it just, so let me just cancel. Yes. Let me edit this sketch and let me say coincident. Alrighty, so here we go. This is the completed violin. I think it took quite a bit to get to this point, but overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the overall result. I think it looks pretty decent, recognizable that it is violin with all of the different pegs in there, even a nice design, albeit not exactly the what we were supposed to do here. Alrighty, so now we are on our last project of the day, which is going to be the Chinese pipa. This is the instrument that you can see right here. This is like another kind of fiddle guitar. Not really sure how you would classify this one in particular, but the more important thing to note about this one is that the strategy that we'll be using in order to make a 3D model is going to be quite similar to what we've done, definitely with the violin and also with the ukulele and the guitar just previously. We will start by taking this picture. We will bring it into our environment, and then we're going to trace it around, and we're going to slowly add volume. And then I have a variety of supporting pictures that I'll be using as reference as we add this volume and try to make this look as realistic as we can. One thing that I think it's quite beautiful about this instrument is this particular part up here. It's like a emblem or stamp. In this case, I think that's a flower that it's been drawn in there. In our case, we will draw this dragon. So we'll give it a shot. I think it's going to be kind of pretty in there. Another thing that I'll mention about the pipa is that, as you can see, let me show you in this picture, the hull or the main body of the instrument is very rounded. And there's tools in Creo that you can use in order to achieve exactly that appearance. However, we haven't learned that yet. That's going to come up in a couple of sessions. The tool that you would use, it's called Loft, where in essence you would do different sections and then you're all connecting them together. Instead, today we're just going to use the usual rounds, or just trying to perhaps create a bunch of planes and do some certain cuts in order to achieve that shape in there. What I might do is like a round and then maybe connect everything at the very end. Like we'll see what we end up doing. There's opportunities to get creative for sure. Another thing is that you see that it goes all the way like that, and then there's like a little cut. So we'll definitely try to achieve all of these shapes as it is being shown in here. So let's give it a shot. I'll probably speed it up from here because it's the same workflow and procedure that we've used so far. So it's not going to be anything new in here. And I'll pause it if anything at any point if there's anything that I want to mention. But the usual strategy that we've employed with the violin, which, by the way, looking at this instrument right now, this should be much easier to CAD than what we've done before, because before we were kind of experimenting with the strategy, and now it's much easier to see, and the geometry overall is much simpler, in my opinion. So let's get started and let's give this a shot. Well, folks, here it is after a very, very long time. We're finally done with the pipa. Overall, I think I'm pretty satisfied with the results. It's definitely the dragon up there adds a nice touch. This was more challenging than I anticipated. First, getting the overall shape roughly correct, and then working around with the head part. But otherwise, I think it was fun, and I hope you are able to follow along and post it wherever you find any interesting parts in the design process. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.